Hi, how are you?
Hey, guys.
Hey.
Hey. So why don't we do this? Why don't we start out by you guys introducing yourself, and then we'll talk briefly about what the role of the panel is, because, and then we'll take some questions from the audience as we start to have a conversation. So, so you guys, the audience, so you guys have an understanding. I really love this sort of panel because it gives us an overview of the chatbot ecosystem and the conversational AI space, and it gives us hopefully a realistic perspective on it. And one of the things that I really enjoyed is I enjoyed both of my talks with Seth and Krish like a few months ago when we had them. And Seth, I thought you had a really good way to think about it. About this.
Okay.
And that's the part that I, because I think a lot of times people are very excited about it, and their imagination goes wild, and it ends up being a solution looking for a problem.
Yeah, listen, it's a new frontier. I think a lot of us that are involved in it are getting way ahead of ourselves just because everyone's not catching up to us. We've gone so far in a very short period of time in terms of technology, but what you can do usually takes time for people to actually catch up to what you could do and start adopting it. And it's always been normal in technology. So I think we're just starting to see the adoption, especially by large enterprises. If you go to the Fortune 500 and look how many of them actually have chatbots on any of their pages, it's still small. And if they do, it might be a Facebook page or a Twitter here or there. They're still hesitant. They're not sure because their competitors don't have it yet. They're not in the category of must-have. It's a category of can't help myself still at this point. I belong to that. I need any new technology I need to have.
I see. So, so Seth and Krish, if you guys can introduce yourselves briefly.
Okay, Krish.
Hey guys, I'm Krish Ramanini, co-founder and CEO at Fireflies.ai. What we're building is a voice meeting assistant that joins across Zoom, Google Meet, video conferencing platforms across the board. It's able to sit on those calls like a participant, take notes, transcribe them, and then provide action items and kick off workflows in other apps afterwards. We've been working at this for the last 2.5 years. And we've just seen like proliferation of Zoom and all the video conferencing that happened during the pandemic, getting to see how users interact with the bot, how they invite the bots. So we've gotten to understand the voice AI space pretty well over the past 2 years. I'm happy to be here and excited to share my thoughts on how this ecosystem is evolving, specifically around voice, but also chatbots and NLP as a whole.
Great.
Good stuff.
So I'm Seth Greenfield. I'm CEO of InPerson. We've been building chatbots for quite a while now for mostly large enterprises. Our customers have been groups like Hyundai, Disney. Most of the movie companies really at the beginning were our main customers because they were using chatbots for entertainment. We have many other brands now that are outside the entertainment world that are using the chatbots for many different things: lead generation, customer support. We have some that are actually looking for this now for e-commerce, but really conversational e-commerce, which I could describe later if you want. But really, what we're seeing here right now is really the beginning, and we've been working on this for a while. One thing that we have put on our website in the last month that's been new is we have an offering for small businesses now to get their feet wet. We're giving people the ability to create a chatbot literally in minutes. They just need to fill in some basic information on their company, and they can deploy it to their website right away. We're offering it as a free model just so people can start seeing, just from the small business side, where the value is here.
Got it. And that's exciting, I guess, because usually I think you see the enterprises and the small, medium businesses follow suit.
Yeah.
Sometime thereafter. But when you look at the chatbot ecosystem space, like I think both of you have two very different perspectives and experiences. right? Like Seth, you have the point of view of someone that helps build these things for enterprises. You built it for Disney and a number of other large companies like that. And Krish, you guys are doing a lot of interesting stuff. You're innovating in the space with Fireflies. You're in, I guess, in the frontier of creating and designing something new that companies are using as a product and as a solution. So can you, and I think you guys are doing a lot of stuff with voice. So can you, I guess I'd like to get both of these perspectives, because I think on one end, what we have is basically chatbots for, I want to say mass consumption, more or less, like, you know, answering FAQs, generating leads on a website, and that's stuff that small businesses could use maybe more easily than big businesses, because they don't have to worry about, like, you know, upsetting thousands or hundreds of thousands of customers if their FAQ doesn't work properly, right? It's a lower risk. And then Krish, you guys are doing a lot of stuff in the back end and in the office. So you're innovating and you're providing a product for it. So how do you think about this conversational AI space in terms of where we are now and in terms of how it's evolving?
I'll take a shot at it from the perspective of voice and like end users that we build the platform for. I'm still a big believer that the reason voice is where it is today, or even chatbots as a whole, is because of the proliferation on the consumer side. When we look at the spread of smart home devices like Amazon Alexa and like Google Home, there's over 200 million smart speakers out there. And then on these speakers, on your phone devices, there's over 4 billion different voice assistants that you can interact with, voice commands, do all sorts of things like that. So I believe that that's where it starts, because it's so natural now for people to be able to say, hey, Alexa, what's the weather? That really kicked things off in terms of why not bring this to the workplace, and why not use these things for simple, repetitive tasks? Like if you think about the actual home, there's a lot of separate tools that are completely disconnected, right? You have your Nest, you have your lights, you have all these other things that you have to interact with. You might be doing shopping on Amazon. Whereas at work, a lot of the tools that you use today are well connected to the ecosystem of like enterprise software, CRMs, contact center tools. And it's actually a little bit clearer playbook to build a more seamless experience, I feel, like in the enterprise, because you can pick use cases and you can actually tailor it for those specific use cases. This is, I think, really popular in the contact center space when you make a phone call and the IVR or the interactive voice assistant routes you to the right person. So we've seen this for almost a decade. It's now really the key, that we're looking at, like how Seth said, is the democratization of this, so that anyone can spin it up, anyone can start using it. You don't need crazy ML or NLP libraries to get off the ground. And so that democratization is happening. So that's a second point, which is a really good sign. And the third point that I see with all of the adoption that's happening is the tech is also getting better, like the ability to understand intent, the ability to understand classification. And people are going to be able to start doing these things and spinning these things up relatively easily. And I remember first looking at like the Chatbot conference and the space, like back in 2016, back when people were hesitant about Slack bots and if that was going to be even a thing. And like, look at how the proliferation today. It's become commonplace. It's just really more of a question of when rather than if.
Mm-hmm. And Krish, I really like this perspective of like the integrated home, the integrated office, because that makes it so concrete in terms of like where we could go or where we're going. Seth, when I talked with you, you had this really good comment, and you said something like, in terms of use case, you compare chatbots to the phone.
Yes.
Right. So can you talk a little bit more about that and how that ties in with what Krish was saying?
Sure. Listen, it's the experience, and really IVR is a great way to look at it. You know, if you look at, IVR is a pretty dumb chatbot, but it was a chatbot. Maybe you had to do it by pressing one. It was still a step in that direction. And you see it now with the Alexas. I believe that, again, a phone call to a service agent is something that a chatbot should replicate well within its domain. The big deal here is, how do we get this and really representing a brand? The truth is that whether it's a large enterprise or the small, there's risk on both sides for them. The smaller guy can't afford to lose his small base by upsetting them. So there's risk all around. They'll get over that stage fright when they see their competitors deploy these successfully, and then it becomes fear of missing out. So we're not at that stage. We're still with the early adopters on this, but a good phone call is something that a chatbot should do well in its domain.
Got it. So Seth, let's transition into what are the top use cases that you are seeing, and what are new ones that are emerging on the horizon that maybe weren't around 6 months ago or a year ago or so?
So I think a lot of what we're seeing now was around, but the demand changed. Something changed in the last year in terms of brands having to give out information to the general public on things that the general public used to feel very confident about. Even from certain large stores that we've spoken to, what are your opening hours? No one ever had a question about that. They checked the website and they felt confident. They actually want to call and speak to somebody right now, which is crazy because the cost of dealing with that is absurd. Whereas a chatbot, if they feel that there is a conversational interface there, again, whether it's text, whether it's voice, they want that reassurance. They want to ask in their channels that they're used to asking. Remember, no one's using a desktop if they're under 35 right now. No one's looking for information on a desktop. They're using their phone. So either you speak to it or you type in a chat interface. But the whole idea of using a website to get information is outdated at this point. This is the way to get it. And unfortunately, most companies haven't gotten there yet. So what happens? Their phone lines get flooded. Their email gets flooded at this point. And that is the pain point we started hearing from everybody. I say in the last 6 to 8 months, a lot of groups are coming to us and saying, listen, we can't afford to build out more people on the support side. We need to start automating. And really, that is the key word here is automation at this point.
Got it. This is obviously coronavirus impacted this in a big way because all of a sudden it's like, hey, are you open today? And 3 years ago, you would just look on Google Maps or you look on Yelp, and they're open. That's amazing. And now these companies have no choice but to try to automate it to some degree.
Yeah. So listen, it's the need for it will push this forward. There's cool things out there that'll also spark it from an educational standpoint. I'd say 90% of the calls we have with different groups is education. 10% is actually making a real deal at that point because there still are so many people learning about this.
Got it. And so this is kind of like a follow-up to this, but and I'll speak about my own experience, and I'm sure I'm not the only one. But I guess when I use the internet, I use it for 4 main reasons. One of them would be entertainment, and I don't think chatbots are going to help there, or conversational AI, at least not yet. Then I use it for research, like to self-diagnose if I'm the spot on my face is a cancer, like that. Or and then the next one might be shopping or e-commerce, or I may be looking for a certain question, like, can this company help me? And now I've gotten to the point where when I go to a website, I don't even want to look on their pages. I just hope they have a chat widget so I can ask somebody if either their product or service will help me. Yeah. And are you seeing adoption in that way?
Yeah, we're seeing quite a bit that way. It's the truth is that most companies have a top 100 FAQs. If the chatbot handles that and handles it well, understands what the person's looking for, and gives a good response and follows up with it well, that deflects 90% of the support calls. And plus, you get the ability to follow up and try and sell something at that point with a lot of the companies, or collect other information that's important to the brand. So there's bonuses, but yeah, this is, it's not rocket science. The FAQ page is inaccessible to most people. And again, because they're coming in with a mobile device, on most websites, go find the FAQ area, and then the burden goes on the user. So, okay, you want an answer? We'll give you 1,000 articles. Go find what you're looking for. It's frustrating. A chatbot, it's just simple. You ask what you want to ask. The burden goes on the chatbot. Go find my answer. And if the answer's not there, okay, requalify in order to get to it.
Right. And Krish, what's your experience with this? Oh, you're muted.
Yeah, for us, we've seen it both on the receiving end for our own customer support systems and chat systems, where we've had to automate a lot of processes. And we would tell ourselves, like, there is no way we could keep up with the sort of demand and questions that people have about a service without building our own chatbots or FAQ bots. I think that's like much needed for our own product. When we actually deliver it to customers, the way we deliver it is we try to take a very self-service approach. So it should be easy for people to sign up, easy for people to see a demo. And really, if they want to be able to use the platform without ever talking to someone, they should be able to do that. And in order to help with that process, we have chatbots along the way, whether that's on the website, whether that's even through email, right? Like where we send automated responses, but in like a bot-like structure to those responses. There's a lot of things that we look at and said, like this person is doing the same sort of repetitive thing over and over again, or answering the same sort of simple question. Their time could be better spent servicing the customer or like doing a more hands-on experience. We will save that person for that. And instead we will deploy either some sort of preset rules or some sort of way for them to handle these sort of questions through our own business practice. And all of this is just describing how we sell our product, and like not even like the product itself, where we're able to actually do all this stuff, like with the way the Firefly's assistant sits on the background and like does work in the background, like that to people is what like is making these sort of tools just more attractive, is because, before you had to call a cab. Now you just press a button for Uber or Lyft. In the same way, I do not want to wait till business operating hours to find out some important information, right? So like you, I would just go to the live chat, get those questions, as quickly as possible. And frankly, a lot of users or prospects don't care that it's a bot, as long as they're getting the answers they need, right? And I think we should measure based on that more than anything else.
Krish, since you're A, an expert in this, and B, you guys are practicing it on your website, and then C, you have a product that's in this space, in this industry. Do you to what degree do you segment your customers and personalize the experience for them based on what their needs are? And then two, is there some way for you to give them essentially a try it before you buy it type of experience, where you can increase the confidence that your service or product will help them so much that it becomes a no-brainer, and in a way that's far more effective than, say, just a website?
Right. So yeah, real quick on that, like everything that's on our website is pretty much transparent, from our pricing to all of these sort of this information. And when you have that sort of radical transparency, you will have more specific questions, more tailored questions, because the person's coming in 60 to 70% informed. So everything from when you go to our website and you click get started for free, since we have a free service, to connecting your calendar and then inviting Fireflies to your Zoom meeting, or inviting it to your Google Meet meeting, to then connecting your Slack integration or any of these other integrations. Everything can be done end to end without ever talking to a person. But we also offer that sort of support or live, like both on our website and then also within our app, based on what people are actually performing or actions they're performing. Sometimes we get information like when they put in their email, like if it's a big enterprise or it's a small company. So we have a lot of this logic that goes into asking them, hey, it looks like you might be stuck. Do you have any questions on this? or it looks like a bunch of your other teammates have also signed up. Like, how can we help you with that? So segmentation by team, by customer type, by the size of the org. And then frankly, the best indicator is like, how are they using the product? Having a person to do it manually at each step. I think there's a really good handoff where you can, as the queries get more complex, you bring in a human, but really first 50% can be really automated with, I'm not even talking about NLP here. I'm just talking about really simple rules that will get a lot of the problems solved. Yeah.
Got it. So it sounds like you're not just using chatbots for the beginning of the journey where the person is exploring your product, but also as an onboarding tool, and then as a tool to make sure that they're actually becoming power users, or that they're using the platform to the best of their ability, getting the most out of it.
Yep, 100%.
100%. You know, I think that's something that does excite me about chatbots is that they can kind of be there for every part of the customer journey, from the discovery to the implementation, to the management and so on. Chris, you guys, I guess this brings us into backend bots, and bots that are that are for enterprises that enterprises could talk to and so on. And you guys kind of specialize in this sort of area. And this is the one area that people don't see, right? Like if your organization has a bot, it's something the public wouldn't know unless you work at that organization and you had personal experience with it. Yet I think like conversational RPAs are becoming one of the fastest growing segments. Can you guys tell me where you think that is? What are some of the use cases that are really popular within organizations for conversational RPAs? And I guess like it's more about the back office bots.
Seth, you want to go take a shot at this?
Yeah, sure. So, there's a bunch of different areas. Listen, you mentioned before in the previous session, HR. Yeah. HR is, basically it's customer support, but your customers are the employees. Whatever you're doing on the outside, you can do it on the inside. And again, 90% of the inquiries that come into HR can be handled really well by a well-designed bot. There are times when someone needs to speak to a person. You need to make sure you have that channel available as well. But most people want the basic information and they don't want to wait for it. So that's one area that we're seeing. Collecting the information as well from people, doing surveys to understand what's going on with employees. One thing we do know is that employees all want to make sure their voices are heard, especially in a year like we just went through. And odds are we don't end up with a regular workplace everywhere going forward. It's going to be some hybrid. Having touch points with people in the company is become more and more important. Understanding what everybody feels like by giving them a good experience, or they can speak to a bot, they can feel like, hey, I count in this company.
Mm-hmm. And
what we've seen is like with our bots and like the way it works in the back office, like the sort of task that Fireflies does is what you would have like a secretary do, for example, right? Joining the meetings, taking notes, but it's also the post-meeting experience that we see that's really interactive with customers. So right after a meeting, I can have that recap shared inside my Slack channel, or I can have my bot fill out data inside my CRM after a sales call. Or if I'm a recruiter and I'm interviewing a candidate, usually what I will do is I will hand it off to the hiring manager and say like, okay, what are the red flags you see here? What are the positive signs, negative signs you see here? And with Fireflies, both the way the bot enables it is it can like now filter through that call and highlight parts that were important, highlight like important things about where they talk about their experience, or filter to like negative sentiment on the call. So again, using a lot of the same ML, NLP libraries that you would use for chatbots to like process text and respond, we're doing this like, but in the back office where it's like for analysis, for quality assurance, for guidance, for coaching, for alerting on like signals. So a lot of these things are very much the same sort of technology as like chatbots, but it's delivered into your like sort of day-to-day business processes. Like we hear how like RPA, like robotic process automation, has been really big, right? Because it's about repeating the same task over and over again. And a lot of RPA today has been based on visual cues, right? Like where are you clicking and stuff. Like the voice RPA or like chat RPA, where it can understand intent and text and then kick off workflows, is also really, really like interesting. One use case we have that customers always talk about is, if I were to have a meeting with you guys, and I'm going to have a recurring meeting or something like 2 months from now, I'm going to probably forget everything we spoke about. And so we have this constant habit of pulling up our Notion doc or Evernote and like finding all this information. And so one of the things we've kind of built Fireflies, we call our avatar Fred, like, and it literally looks like a bot and like a firefly. It will email you like a couple hours before your meeting and said, hey, Bob, this is the person you spoke with last time. Here was some of that key important information. If you need to look at more stuff, go check this out. So even though we're building back office products, like our DNA building Slack bots and chat bots on the consumer side, really help build the persona of what Fireflies is. And so even the note taker that joins, it's Fred Fireflies, which is our bot. So we think that like that sort of stuff is not just relegated to the consumer side. You'll see the same sort of personalization and personification in the enterprise as well.
Got it. And before we open it up to questions, one thing that I've seen, and I think that this is probably going to be the future of SERP or search engines, is it, and I think we're starting to see it more and more, but there being bots on the search engine results pages. And so, for example, there was a restaurant in Seattle, and this was on Bing, and this was one of the experiments they were running, is instead of you just going to that website and trying to find out what their hours of operation were, or what they put in their ravioli, you can ask them right on Bing without even leaving the search engine results page. And I think that as this thing evolves, that's, if you need a product or a service, or you have something that's about self-diagnosing yourself, like what lawyer should you hire, or if you have a parking ticket, I think you're going to have these conversational agents that automatically try to help you. And maybe, when let's say you're looking for a plumber, you have like 4 plumber options. You message one of them, or you message all of them, and then whoever is available respond and within the right price automatically messages you back, and you don't even have to leave Google. Are you guys seeing that at all? Like, what are your thoughts about that?
So it actually, when you think about search in a lot of ways is the complete opposite of a chatbot. Google basically taught us how to search, or Microsoft at the beginning. They taught us how to search. Find some keywords, and we'll try and get you what we can, and you go look for what you're looking for. Deploying chat within there is something that's going to be an interesting evolvement. But I think the search is going to have to evolve then also, so you can actually write your full question in. Think about it. When's the last time you actually wrote a full question into a chat box? I've never done it. But the chat interface that will come up then, what you're talking about, would be a switchover. So I think in order to make that seamless, they're going to have to figure out a way to create a more seamless conversation with it. But I think it's an interesting thing, and I think that this is a great sign of where things are going. It's an acknowledgement that the burden is on the business. The business needs to get me my answer, not send me to go search for it.
I want to highlight the get me my answer, because I've talked to so many folks in the space, when they build their products, and I said, why are you using, chatbots? Why not just have your regular website? Why don't you have human operators? Why don't you just use like email support tickets instead of having to do things live? And the answer is, the industry as a whole, if a customer comes in and they don't get their question answered within 45 seconds, they're going to go bounce and look for another competitor who can answer those same questions. So the bot the real business use case is like necessity of speed. And I think that if you need to build that where a website is working even when you're sleeping, the only way to get there is with bots. And so people are willing to take that extra effort like that it takes to initialize and set up bots to be able to provide that business value and like immediacy. When you look at like these chat platforms or like live chat platforms like Intercom and Zendesk and all these, in the last couple of years, they've made a big push towards being able to help people on that side, right? And build bots within those platforms. Maybe they have certain limitations, but it is something that they've constantly pushed. We've seen on like support ticket side, people spend lots and lots of time trying to find an answer. Like I'm talking about the reps themselves. So there are back-end bots, right? And workflows that can essentially suggest and guide and say, hey, based on this question, I think this is what they want. So you should share this with them. And that interactivity is also very much like, you know, a customer doesn't see it, but it's making the rep more productive. But yeah, I genuinely think that like search is also multifaceted, because in Google, I'm going to just dump my entire question. Whereas when I'm talking to a human, I'm going to like ask my long question in like 3 or 4 like questions. So the bot needs to be good at understanding sub-classification, needs to understand like different parameters that I'm asking and like the follow-ups that I'm going to ask, or how am I going to ask the same question in N different ways. So I know we didn't get a chance to touch too much on the technology side today, but that's like where the real challenge is, and that's where the rubber meets the road. And that's where like preset rules will not get you 100% of the way there.
No, especially when you get, sorry.
Yeah. So let's take a few questions from the audience. Sure. And next up we have Rob. So guys, and there's been a little back and forth. So a lot of people are asking questions in the stage area. Some people are asking it in the events area. And then I'm going back and forth. I didn't even know they were asking in the stage area. So going forward, let's ask questions in the stage area only. So we're going to open it up. I'll be able just to do a couple of questions. So if you guys can ask really quickly. And then next up, we have Rob Lawson from Google. And while we're getting those questions in, Seth, you could fit thought. And then I'll pick the best 2 questions and we'll go from there.
Yeah, and I was just going to follow up on what was being said. Just, you know, we were talking a lot about the support side, but when it comes to e-commerce, you better get to that person's inquiry very fast or you're going to lose that sale. Listen, everybody knew with mobile websites, one of the issues at the beginning was how long it took for them to load. And that was causing many people basically to leave those pages. The same thing here. If somebody's coming into your shop, you better be able to handle them fast or they're going to go find another shop.
Right. And Krish, anything you want to add here?
Yeah, I mean, I think I'm re-emphasizing some of the same points here. Like with the bots and like the way people perceive them has also changed, right? Like maybe in the past it was like, oh, how dare you give me a bot? I want to talk to a human, right? To now whereas it's accepted, it's socially accepted, and businesses who were against it initially are accepting of it. And I'm talking about like large enterprises where the usually change management isn't something that they're obviously very keen on. But I think time and time again, like I've seen, at least I've revisited this space after like 3 to 4 years. And just the amount of like acceptance for it, like there's entire companies that are built on changing the web structure into a bot-like Q&A sort of structure too, right? Like traditional web flows are not even that relevant to them because they're just like, ask me your question, and based on your question, I will show you the website that you need to see, right? So I think that's like something magical that's happening. But really the challenges that need to be, I think, addressed is people are going to have so many different variations of like expectations. And so you have to start also measuring, benchmarking the quality of the responses. Did it actually answer their question? Did it just leave them like wondering and leave? So those are things that we internally measure. And those are some of the things that we try to optimize for.
Got it. So I guess last question would be, how would you divide up the use cases in terms of back-end bots versus voice versus like customer service, marketing, et cetera?
Go ahead, Seth, on the front end, especially. I'm sure you have the most insights on that. Yeah.
So I think, from the standpoint of customer support, lead generation, e-commerce, right now this is all mostly text at this point. I am very excited about voice, but more than that, I'm excited about voice video. And the voice video platform I'm excited for is either AR or VR. It's further out there, but that's the experience. I want, especially on the e-commerce side, I want to walk into a store. I want to deal with a virtual agent in there at some point. Yep. I think all the work that we're doing right now in voice and then voice video, it's the stepping stone until that eventuality. And I think that's where we're all headed.
Got it. Well, yeah, thank you guys so much for coming. Chris, you have one question from Enver. Maybe you can answer him directly. But we have to move forward. Next up, we have Rob Lawson coming in. Seth, Chris, thank you so much for being a part of.
Thank you. Thanks, Stefan. Thanks,
guys.
Thanks.
Yeah, absolutely. And Chris, congratulations. I saw the news yesterday.
Thank you. Yeah, we just finished raising our A. So, thank you.
Nice.
I'll give you a round of applause for that.
Thank you.